I thought there was a lot of good. I think it just provided affirmation that my gut feeling walking off the bench was, in fact, how the game was played out. I just think, there were so many good things to point towards as far as building our overall team game. Excuse me. I think we're becoming much more difficult to play against. I think to play a team like Edmonton that has a pretty dynamic offense, and they play the game at a high tempo. To limit them to the amount of chances that we did. I give the players a lot of credit for just the buy-in and the commitment to playing defense, and we certainly didn't sacrifice on the offensive side to do it. We generated a fair amount of quality looks. I believe that if we continue to play the game in this fashion, that the puck's going to go in the net for us.
When you see the rush chances really be minimal, does that give you a good hope that that was a very big issue coming into the season?
Yeah, it's really encouraging, from our standpoint, because it's been a message that we've preached to these guys from day one is, what do we want Rangers hockey to look like? And, if we're going to ultimately get to where we want to go, we're going to have to make a commitment to playing team defense and playing within structure. And a big part of that is defending the rush. Some of the highest quality chances, the highest conversion rates are off the rush, whether it be odd man situations or things of that nature. So our ability to limit the chances off the rush is going to go a long way to setting our team up for success as far as keeping the puck out of our own net. And I think, you play a team like Edmonton, I don't know that there's a more dangerous team off the rush than that team with some of the people they have in their lineup. So I give the players a lot of credit. I thought we did a really good job. We had numbers back a lot all night long. There was layers of defense. We were willing to block shots when we had to. They got a few looks. It's hard to contain them completely. Obviously, McDavid and Draisaitl are two of the elite players in the game. But I thought the guys did a really good job just as far as their commitment to play the game the right way. And I think that's something to build on moving forward.
Like the defensive improvements have been obvious as you're touching on, and even you guys having the advantage in scoring chances seemed to be pretty obvious last night as well. Do you look at that more as like, okay, it's a puck luck thing, like eventually they're going to go in, or is there some element of like whatever it is that you need to do to finish better, you got to get there?
It's probably a little bit of both. I think the reality is we're trying to build a team game that we can produce night in and night out. And I said to you guys all along here, we've said the same thing to the players, that our team defense starts up the ice when we have the ability to control territory. We can control momentum. We can force teams to expend energy defending us. I thought our puck pursuit game up the ice has been really strong the last few games. I think we're controlling territory. We're playing more in the offensive zone than we are in the defensive zone. So I think when you put all those components together, for me, that's the type of game that we want to build. We think that's a game that we can reproduce night in and night out, and that could potentially give us the best chance to win. We're not doing it at the expense of giving up offense. As I said, we're generating a lot of high-quality looks. I do believe that if we continue to generate the types of chances that we have the last couple of games, the puck will go in the net for us. I think we have a number of people in our lineup that are pretty talented guys that have shown an ability to score. So I believe they will. We've got to just stay the course here. Are there areas where we can improve and get better to try to help that finishing ability? For sure. But it's a really small sample size. So, as far as, being, I guess, reading into things too much on either side, positive or negative. I think, we've liked the way that the team has trended. as far as building the game that we're trying to build, and we'll see where it goes. But you know, from a process standpoint, the coaching staff, you know, has really liked the game that we put on the ice the last few games.
As a coach, do you have to like reinforce that with the players so that they don't try to do things now that are too more or get out of what they're doing, keep doing what they're
Yes, yes, you know, because these guys care an awful lot. You know, they're invested and they want to win and they want to score. You know, our offensive people want to score goals. They know that the team relies on them to score goals. So when the puck doesn't go in the net, you know, it's easy for things like doubt to creep in, and that's where we have to be vigilant. You know, as I said to these guys from day one, that, you know, one of the things that they can expect from this coaching staff is honesty, and a big part of that is assessing, you know, our overall game regardless of what the score is. It's about how you win and how you lose, and the intentions that we have when we go over the boards. That's what we can control, and so we're trying to give them honest feedback, and that's where this is how we feel right now. You know, and I think the players deserve a lot of credit for their effort, their intentions, their attitudes. You know, they're a resilient group. They're all in right now. They're invested. It's a great feeling, and we don't want to lose that. We want to sustain the enthusiasm that we have around the group, and we just got to continue to dig in, and we'll find ways to score.
You touched on it a little bit yesterday, but why do you feel like the Sand Carolina has been so impactful offensively, and if you've gained even more trust in them as the season's going on so far?
Yes, I have gained more trust, and I have gained more trust because of the game that they're playing. And you know, we've sat with that line and talked to them about their identity and what their contribution is and how they can play, or how they need to play to try to help the Rangers win hockey games. And when they play a north-south straight ahead game, they play behind defensemen, they get in and establish a forecheck. It allows them their ability to use their physicality to their advantage, and that's clearly an advantage that they have with their size and their strength. You know, I think they're buying into that. They're playing a straight ahead game. They've really cut out a lot of risk in their game by nature of playing straight ahead, and the byproduct is they're generating a lot of offense. You know, there's all three of those guys. You know, Sam, Eddie, and Remps, they've all generated a fair amount of scoring chances. I believe they're going to score. You know, I think if they continue to generate those types of looks, the puck will go in the net for them. So, but regardless, the game that they're playing right now makes us hard to play against. You know, they're wearing teams down. They make it hard on our opponent's defensemen. They're a handful, and I think they're playing extremely well right now. And it's been reflected in the amount of ice time they're getting. You know, as I said to the players on a number of occasions, you know, those that play well will get rewarded with further play, and so those guys are getting rewarded right now with the way they're playing.
With Trocheck out for a couple more weeks at least, how you thought the top line has performed without him recently?
Well, I think we've tried to create a little bit of balance in his absence. I think Mika's played extremely well in the middle. You know, he's had a really strong start to his season. You know, I think he could easily have, you know, 3 or 4 goals, and you know, and maybe we wouldn't be having this conversation. You know, that's the fine line that we walk as a coaching staff, is, you know, is trying to make sure that we send the right message, the honest message to the group, and that's what we're trying to do. I mean, I think Mika's had a strong start. You know, I think those guys have had, they drive offense because they're talented. You know, Brett drives offense. You know, Laffy, he gets a few looks a game because he's talented. You know, where we're trying to work with those guys is just on the defensive side of the puck and making sure that it doesn't turn into a chance for chance game, because we don't think that that's a recipe for success. You know, we certainly want to stack the deck in our favor, and so they will drive offense because they're talented guys. and they've had a fair amount of looks. I think we can help them improve on the defensive side of the puck, and just making sure there's a little bit more honesty in their game that makes us harder to play against. I think JT's line has had a number of good looks the last few games, and I think his line has played well also. So, we'll see how it goes moving forward. We'll take each game as it comes, but obviously Troch isn't an easy guy to replace. He's one of our best players and plays in all key situations. So that's not an easy guy to replace. But I think the guys are, that we're putting in these situations are, I think they have the right intent going over the boards.
Okay, last one.
He's being evaluated for a lower body injury.
Any optimism about tomorrow or no?
I'm not sure either way.
Dude, with Morrow being here now, like regardless of Will's status, are you hoping to give him a look, or is that kind of dependent on the injury situation?
It all depends on the injuries.